Hi, I'm Adrienne. I've been a flute teacher for the last 35 years and I'm also an examiner for the AMEB, our national examining body for music in Australia. And I've been doing that for more than 25 years. So I thought I might give you a little couple of tips that might help you when you're preparing for your exams or just learning the flute in general. One thing I really wanted to address, because I hear this all the time in kind of the intermediate level of playing, is trying to develop an awareness of phrasing. And phrasing comes down to a few things. One, where you breathe, and two, how you shape the phrase. So what is phrasing? What if we kind of break that down? What does it actually mean to phrase your music? If you think about the way we speak, we naturally have commas, full stops in our sentences, and we generally breathe in those places. We don't always breathe in unusual places because it feels like we're having a bit of a panic attack, and it can sound like that also when you're playing the flute, especially if you're nervous and you haven't planned your breathing well. So as you're learning your piece, put your breaths in at the start. Where is the end of the phrase? Where is the little comma in the melody line? Where is the full stop in the melody line? And then it becomes a little bit more easy to communicate the ideas that you're trying to say in your music. But that's only one part of it, breathing, placement of breathing. The other part is how to taper off the end of a phrase and how to kind of make a phrase more than just one sound all the way through. A really good technique that I encourage you, or all of my students can do this, I encourage everyone to be able to do it, is to be able to taper. So that means decrescendo the end of a phrase so that you're not just stopping hard on the end of the note. I hear this a lot. You get to the end of a note. There's a wah at the end, which if you really want a dramatic impact, that might be okay. But in general, the end of a phrase would sound more elegant if you can decrescendo the end of that phrase. Now on a low note, it's easier, but there is a tendency to go a bit flat, which we don't want. You don't want to go flat. And if you're in the high octave, drop a whole octave, which is even less nice. We don't really want that to hear that. So instead, we want to try to create this very elegant shape to the end of your phrase, controlling the pitch so it doesn't drop, even when you're running out of breath. Now, the technique I use, and there's probably more than just this technique, but I find this really successful and my students find this really successful, is to try and lift the airstream out of the flute. Now, how do we do that? It's by the way you angle your airstream, and that all comes down to what you're doing with your mouth. I imagine that you're blowing here when you're playing, and then when you want to decrescendo, you lift the air. Sometimes I might say, imagine you've got a fly on your nose and your hands are tied behind your back. What are you going to do? You blow the fly away by blowing up. A handy technique, if you have one, is to use a Pneumopro. Have you seen these before? They've got these little fans and it shows exactly where the airstream is being directed. I wonder if you can see. So after a little bit of practice, you might be able to get quite good control about how your airstream is moving up or down. If I want a really rich, dark, low sound, I might direct my airstream down for a higher note, high third register. You can see this one moving. And if I want to lift my airstream right out of the flute until it leaves the flute completely. And then you have a little bit of control to lift that airstream up without actually letting the pitch drop. So I'm going to give you an example. There's a beautiful piece on the grade 5 list D, I believe, called Jacaranda Skies and Birdsong by Carolyn Morris, and it's beautiful. If you haven't played it yet, I really encourage you to. And in the first couple of lines, it doesn't really say anything with the dynamics other than MP. And that's what I generally get. MP, exactly the same, all the way through. So I end up with something like this. And it's all very similar all the time. The sound is the same, the color is the same, the dynamic is the same. But if you really want to bring out the expression of the phrase, we maybe try and swell a little bit on those longer notes. You can use a bit of vibrato if you want. And then when you're finishing off a longer note, you're going to taper off that note using your angle of your airstream to lift it out of the flute. I'll see if I can sit on an angle that you can see that. So here's that line again of Jacaranda Skies. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a clue, a little insight into how to shape some phrases, especially in a long lyrical passage where you want it to be expressive and beautiful and interesting and well controlled.